Hi, welcome to our math. Today I'm doing a series of videos on parent graphs and their transformations. Today I'm looking at the parent graph of square root of x and log x. You'll notice I'm on the computer instead of doing this by hand. That's because I want to use Desmos.com to expedite my graphs. Desmos makes these beautiful graphs. It's a free online graphing calculator. All right, so instead of graphing here, I'm going to come over here and graph on Desmos because I didn't look at what I'm doing. Negative and then negative. Got it. So my parent graph is y equals the square root of x. You'll notice that this looks like, if you know parabolas, which is a common graph, it looks like a parabola that has fallen over. The next thing I want to graph is y equals negative the square root of x. So now it looks like I have a full parabola that has fallen over. What happened is the graph flipped over the x-axis. So it's a reflection of the original graph over the x-axis. All my y values have become negative, where I had 4, 2 before. I don't know why it's not giving me my point. I now have 4, negative 2. So my y values just went negative. All right, the next one I want to do is y equals the square root of negative x. All right, now my graph has flipped over the y-axis. It did this because the only way the values under a square root are valid is if what is under that square root is positive. So if I make the x negative, I need to substitute in negative values because a negative times a negative is positive. The domain is now negative x values, negative infinity to 0. So it flipped over the y-axis. Square root of x is this great function because the original graph is only valid in the first quadrant. So now we can see as it flips where it's going. So negative f of x, this one, flipped down into the fourth quadrant versus the function of negative x flipped the y-axis into the second quadrant. Let's see if that works again with the function of log. Y equals log of x. You can see this red graph. It's right here. It's skimming the y-axis below the x-axis. And then like y equals the square root of x, it's very low in the first quadrant. So it has similar characteristics to the square root of x, though it does cross down into quadrant 4. So if our assumption is right, when we do negative log of x, it should flip, go up the y-axis, and grow into the fourth quadrant. So y equals negative log of x. There we go. That's this graph right here. It does go up in following the y-axis up here. And then down here, it is following into the fourth quadrant as predicted. And then here, if we do y equals log of negative x, then it flipped over the y-axis. It's still kind of hugging the y-axis over here and then growing into quadrant 2 because it flipped over the y-axis. That is a very interesting looking graph. If we come back over here, it says, what does multiplying a function itself? So this is asking about y equaling negative f of x. What does multiplying a function by a negative do to the graph? And in this case, it flips the graph over the x-axis. What does multiplying x by a negative do? So this was y equaling f of negative x. In this case, it flips the graph over the y-axis. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.